Hey everybody, this is Marek Brave, head coach at the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, and you are watching Drinking with Mo.
All right, everybody, welcome to Drinkin' Mo's. Your host, Big Mo here. If you're watching the video version of this on YouTube, like, subscribe, make sure the notifications are coming because as my guest and I had kind of talked about a little bit, I can, for the first time, officially announce on the show that the show is going to be a part of the Warrior Wrestling event down in St. Louis, May 28th. So, big things coming in the month of May. I got with me today one of the guys behind the Black and Brave Academy, Marek Brave. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Hey, congratulations on the big news, that big announcement you just made. Excited for you.
Oh, man, I am so excited. Like, just the talent on that card and possibilities of people I could talk to there is... I'm still speechless.
But, you know, you'll go down there, you'll have a good time, get some good interviews in the can, and you'll be able to share them with the world.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they got their champion, Will Ospreay, is going to be there. Match I'm particularly excited about because I kind of like those big hoss fights. You know, the two humongous guys, just Jonah versus Jeff Cobb.
Oh, that'll be a good one. Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited about that one. Anyways, let's get on to you here.
All right,
first
man.
First thing I like to start off with each of my guests with is what got you started in wrestling as a fan, and then what got you started into getting...
Internet's shorting out. What was the
Okay.
second part of that question?
What got you started, like, actually getting into performing in that aspect?
Well, I became a fan, I want to say it was about 1991. I was 5 years old. I had a neighbor who was super into it, and one day we were jumping on the trampoline and he was like, we're going to do a wrestling match. And I didn't watch wrestling at the time. And he was like, I'm going to be the Undertaker and you're going to be Shawn Michaels. I'm like, okay. Or other way around. You're going to be Undertaker. I'm going to be Shawn Michaels. I didn't know what an Undertaker was. I was 5 years old. So in my head, I envisioned like this deep sea diver, like old school deep sea diver with like the big
with like
domed
the
helmet.
metal.
Yeah, I don't know. My 5-year-old brain went under the sea. I don't know. Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
I'm not positive, but so we did the wrestling match or whatever. We jumped on the trampoline, and then we went back to his house, and he put a VHS tape in the VCR, and he showed me what professional wrestling was, and he showed me who the Undertaker was, which was not a deep sea diver. Spoiler alert! Sorry for those of you out there who are not familiar with the Undertaker. But from that moment on, I was hooked. You know, the flashy characters. Ironically enough, my favorite wrestler became Shawn Michaels, not the Undertaker. So I quickly found out who he was and took a liking to him and many other wrestlers of the era. And I stayed a fan through that entire time. So fast forward to 2002, I met one Seth Rollins, who his real name's Colby Lopez. Many people know that now, but I met him outside of an arena waiting in line to get tickets for a SmackDown taping. At the time, it wasn't live. So him and his group of friends, they were just wrestling on the ground. And me and my group of friends looked over at those guys and we're like, oh, those guys are pretty cool. Maybe we'll go hang out with them. So we became close buddies. And he told me about a local, basically backyard company that had a makeshift ring in a barn and was like, hey, man, if you like doing this on the ground or on the trampoline, you should get in good with these guys so that you can wrestle in this makeshift ring in the barn. So we kind of all got together with them later in the evening, and me and my friend group and he and his friend group, we all became friends, and then we got into the barn wrestling company, and we became friends with those dudes. and just started wrestling in 2002 in the barn. Quickly, it was shut down by the parents because they were concerned about the dangerous nature of backyard wrestling. And so the oldest one of the group, who was a legal adult at that time, purchased an actual wrestling ring from High Spots, and we're like, screw it, man. People come and watch us in the barn. We're going to put on a show. It was at a church gymnasium, and we're going to charge, I think we charged $2 a ticket so that we can all go get pizza after the show's over. And we're going to put on a professional wrestling show with no professionals in sight. And we did that. And that would have been August of 2003. So just a year after I had met that group of young gentlemen. And that was my first wrestling match. I was on, it was the exact same show where Seth Rollins had his first wrestling match in front of an audience in a real ring with paying customers. So that was that, August 2003. And then we graduated high school in the summer of 2004, went to get trained in Chicago by Danny Daniels, who runs AAW in Chicago now. And the rest was history, man. We progressed from there. I unfortunately suffered a pretty severe neck injury, which would come back to haunt me later on in life. But and he obviously went on to some pretty cool things. Still doing those cool things. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. This August will be 19 years since I had my first match. 19 years in the professional wrestling industry. It's been a fun time. Lots of ups and downs, but we're still here.
No, that's true. With Rollins or Lopez or whatever you want to have him go by, he's been up to big things. You and him have been up to big things with the Black and Brave Academy. So,
yes, sir.
And actually, why not? We'll go into that next. I've lost count of how many people I've seen on social media in their bios, Black and Brave Academy. Like they've been I've literally lost count.
Yeah.
What got the idea rolling to get that started?
Well, first, you say you've lost count. I've lost count too. I have no idea exactly how many graduates we've had over the last 8 years. We've been doing this almost 8 years with the Wrestling Academy. People from all over the world, man, all over the country, all over the world coming in to train with us. It's been pretty wild. And we're booked solid through May of 2024 now. So 2 years in advance, which will be 10 years of us running the Wrestling Academy. So that's pretty cool. But actually, I had done, I don't want to call it a school, but I had done some classes here in Davenport, Iowa on my own while Seth was down training in NXT before he got called up to the main roster. And we would communicate and stay in touch and talk about the challenges and stuff of training in what was then the modern day. Now it's, 8 years ago. But and he was like, well, if I ever get called up to the main roster and I'm able to move home to Iowa, we should start a school together. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Whenever that happens, cool, whatever. And so sure enough, the Shield is a thing, and they debut at Survivor Series, whatever year it was, 2013, I think, maybe. Yeah. And he's like, all right, well, let me get established on the main roster, and then we'll start this school. And I'm just, again, kind of like, yeah, sure, whatever. This sounds like something you're saying. That's never going to happen. But sure as shit, he moves back home, and he's like, all right, I think I found a spot for our school. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's sit down and have some meetings about this. So it all happened so quickly. I think we announced the school in July of 2014. We filled up the first class within 2 weeks, and we started training in August of 2014. And we haven't stopped since. We do 3 months on, 1 month off. So every year we bring 3 new classes of anywhere between 12 and 15 people. And it's been a blast. It's been crazy. It's kept my mind sharp for the business, and like even during my time away when I wasn't wrestling due to injury, I feel like I never missed a beat because I never left the professional wrestling business. I was always here. I took 5 years off essentially from wrestling, but I never took time away from the business. So it's been crazy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, it's definitely got to help with keeping your mind up with the business when, I mean, you might technically be away from, like you mentioned, the active performer aspect, but you're still in the training people aspect, so you're still in a way there.
Yep, and I run a local independent promotion as well, so we're running shows almost every weekend, all across eastern Iowa and western Illinois, because Davenport's right on the Mississippi River here, so we can kind of hit both states there. But I never left. I was training during the week. I was putting on shows on the weekend. I just wasn't wrestling until recently when I made my comeback. Had a big comeback match, which was nice. Oh, my cat's bugging me over here, but you're not right, buddy. But yeah, man, the school, it's kind of taken on a life of its own, and we have a nice little community here with people from all walks of life, all different types of backgrounds, congregating in Davenport, Iowa, in the Quad Cities, all because of their love and our love for professional wrestling. So we dig it.
That's awesome. Quick for the listeners and viewers, you mentioned the promotion that you run. For anybody that might not be, too familiar with it, what's the name of the promotion?
It's SCW Pro. And you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at SCW Pro. We have been going just as long. Like I said, myself and Rollins had our first match on the same show. It was actually the very first SCW show 19 years ago, and I took over that company a decade ago. So I've been running it for 10 years now. But it's SCW Pro, and we run shows all the time. A lot of Black and Brave graduates wrestle for us. A lot of guys who've been doing it just as long as Seth and I have. And then we'll bring in special guests from time to time as well. We just had Scotty Too Hottie a couple weeks ago. And that was a fantastic opportunity. I got to know him. I did a week-long coaching stint at NXT a few years ago in the summer. Yeah. I want to say summer 2018. And we became friends. He was a coach down there at the time. We became friends and just kind of stayed in touch. And when he decided he wanted to get back into independent wrestling, I was like, hey, man, you got to come wrestle for me. So we set it up. He came on out. He did a great job, and the fans were super excited to see him.
That's awesome. And, I'll make sure I put some links up to the social medias in the descriptions. Awesome. I want to kind of circle back to the training aspect. Everybody kind of has their own training style. What would you say is yours?
Well, I think it's kind of evolved over time, like I went to college to be a teacher. I actually was getting my teaching degree when we started the school. I dropped out with a semester left to get that degree because I wanted to focus all my time, energy, attention into making the school a success. And I didn't want to look back if it wasn't successful and be like, oh, if I would have only done this, if I would have only paid more attention to this, then it would have been successful. So thankfully, I haven't had to do that. I haven't had to look back and say it wasn't successful, because it's been very successful. But I have a teaching background. I was acquiring those skills. So my style has evolved over time. When you first start out, like I said, I've been doing this almost 2 decades. So I come from a little bit of the old school way where, they're yelling at you and they're beating you in the ground and stuff like that. And so that's kind of how my style started out. I was kind of emulating my teacher, my coach from back in the day. And then, you realize that you kind of have to give an individualized style to certain people. Not everybody responds to the same type of teaching technique. So some people, if you yell at them, that's gonna click. It's gonna connect. But other people, you can't yell at them because they'll shut down completely. So you got to kind of adapt and change. And as I've gotten older and as I've aged, my energy levels have dipped a little bit. So I'm not as much into the yelling and screaming, although I have my moments. I'm not into the yelling and screaming as much as I used to be. And now it's more of just like a repetition, and let's talk it out. Let's get to the root of the problem. Let's figure out what we need to do differently together as a team, as a group. And I have graduates that have been with us for a number of years. They do the yelling and screaming for me, so I don't got to be the bad cop anymore.
Yeah, like, that would fit right along with, me being a military veteran, especially from boot camp.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, like, I think I had just gotten to the compartment that first night. They say, oh, you got about a couple hours to take advantage of it, because the next couple of days you're not getting shit for sleep.
Yeah.
I don't think I laid my head down more than 5 minutes. Light comes on. Get the fuck up! I'm like, okay.
Right. Yeah. I often equate the wrestling business and wrestling training to a boot camp of sorts. I think there is a lot of that same like hierarchy type stuff where you got to work your way up from the bottom, and you have to earn the respect before it's just given out to anybody. And you have to prove that you belong and prove that you've earned the opportunity. So I do think it's the wrestling business and the military. They're very similar in some ways, not always.
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree. There's a lot of the mental and physical toughness it takes to even get through wrestling training, boot camp, and then other parallels. Like, I've talked with a few people about the different road stories that I'd hear from people, and I very much liken it to, like, for me with deployment or sea stories, for me being from the Navy. Like, some of the craziness and different things, like, places you got to go and things you got to do while you're there. Lots of parallels between the two from listening to a bunch of the different friends that I have that are in the business here. Yeah, like, I remember, this one, I actually posted this video on Twitter of the one time I went up and I actually got offered the chance to be a special guest ring announcer for my friend's match up in Fargo. And I'm like, so you're telling me you're going to give me a microphone and let me be in the ring? Yes. And some of the craziness that we had that night, like, I remember that was the time that I first met now Warhorse, and who's now Ruby Soho. Met both of them up there, and after party, drinks were flowing, and the bar apparently had a karaoke night, and I just went up to look at what the song was on the screen, and before I know it, one of the wrestlers that was up there shoves a microphone in my face, and I'm drunkenly singing the Puddle of Mud song, She Fucking Hates Me.
That's funny.
And some of the same sort of stuff happened during, like, my deployment and stuff. Like, so I guess that's kind of how I gravitated so much towards the different wrestlers in the area. It's like, this seems familiar to me.
Yeah, there are a lot of parallels. I don't want to compare professional wrestling. I don't want to say it's on the same level as the military. As far as importance, to society and whatnot. But I think that's intentional, though. The parallels are intentional. You got to make sure people earn it.
Yeah, no, there's definitely that aspect. Definitely the same, because, like you mentioned, in the wrestling business, you got to earn everything. Nobody's going to give you shit.
Exactly.
And military, pretty much the same damn thing. You know, you first, even if you've been in for a while, you first get to a different command. It's like you're having to prove yourself all over again, because it's like, okay, yeah, that might have been how you did it one place, but you're here now.
Yep.
And well, leading into another topic that I wanted to talk about, you mentioned earlier about making a comeback after a while. Pretty serious neck injury. What was that first match back like?
I know it sounds cliche, but honestly, it felt like riding a bike. Like, I don't know if it was because of the training that I'm still doing or because of the shows that I'm still putting on every weekend, but it felt like I hadn't missed a beat. Like, there wasn't that moment where I was like, oh man, I forgot what this was like or that was like, or oh, it hurts more than I remember, or I'm getting so blown up, you know. Like, I trained ahead of time, you know, to make sure I was physically prepared and mentally prepared, but man, it felt like I was home. It felt like I was where I was supposed to be, and it was a great experience. I have two boys. I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, and they got to watch me wrestle. My 6-year-old was only one the last time I had wrestled, so he had never seen me wrestle. And they're both huge wrestling fans, so that was great for them. They got to celebrate with me in the ring after I won. So they got to go to school the next day or 2 days later and tell all their friends they were on a wrestling show. and that was a big deal for them. So, I mean, it was fantastic, man. It was a blast. It was fun. I was extremely sore afterwards. Not injured. I wasn't injured, so that's the important part. And definitely. So I got a little pep in my step now. I got a little comeback tour that I'm getting ready to embark on, and people keep asking me, like, what's next and where does it go from here? And I'd be lying if I gave you any sort of answer. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know how long I'll do it. I don't know if it's a few months deal or if I can continue for a couple of years or what the future holds. But I figure as long as I'm having fun and as long as I'm not getting injured, again, being sore and being hurt, those are a lot different than being injured. So as long as I'm having fun and I'm not injured, I'm gonna keep it up. So we'll see what happens. But it was a blast.
Yeah, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the opponent that night, JT Energy, he's been making some pretty big splashes around the area.
Yeah, he hits up every promotion in Iowa, and he does well once he gets there. Really proud of what he's become as a worker in this business. He was in my, gosh, he's gonna get mad at me for not remembering which class it was, but I want to say it was the 5th class, Black and Brave class 5, and we just graduated class 23. So he's been around a while. But he's my student. I want to say I taught him everything he knows. That's probably not accurate. I taught him a good amount of what he knows. He's learned more as he's continued on through the business. But like I told him before the match, I taught him everything he knows, but I didn't teach him everything I know. And I still had some tricks up my sleeve, and I proved that when I pinned him 1, 2, 3 for his championship. So.
Yep, I was going to say, you did win that title that night, and I am actually going to be, I'd have to look at the schedule again, but I'm having him on here shortly.
But you're going to have to ask him how my boot tastes.
You know what? I will add that to my notes.
No, he's a great guy. He's a fantastic performer. He does such a good job of getting under people's skin. And in a day and age where not a lot of people are interested in getting people to hate them because they want social media followers and they want to sell t-shirts and they want Patreon subscribers and YouTube clicks and this, that, and the other, he does a very good job of getting people to dislike him, which makes my job as somebody who very much wants people to like him, makes my job much easier.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he definitely does a good job of the whole heel aspect, because I've unfortunately never been there live for one of his shows, but I've seen plenty of them, seen the videos, and he can definitely get people going.
Oh yeah.
And I know he, here at the beginning of June, has a pretty big show with the Central Empire Wrestling in their Bridge City Slam, where I believe it's him versus Trevor Murdoch, and whoever wins that goes up against Matt Cardona later that evening. That's going to be something pretty cool.
That's a big opportunity. Hopefully he's able to secure that match with Cardona. I don't have any inside information on that, but hopefully he's able to get that match. I think that'd be a good one for him and a good one for his career.
Oh, definitely. I mean, each of the guys involved in that, those three people, I mean, they've all been up to big things, and it would be pretty big for any of them, with, Trevor Murdoch having been a former NWA champ and, wanting to get that title back. And then you have JT Energy and wanting to get into that match and go up against the NWA champ. It's pretty big all the way around.
Yep. So, we may have been opponents, a couple weekends ago, but I'll be rooting for him in his upcoming matches, unless he's got to fight me again, and then I'm gonna be going for myself. So.
No, that's understandable. I mean, you can always root for somebody when they're going up against other people, but when it comes up against you, you want to have that win for you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. So one thing I've discussed with a lot of people is about the current state of professional wrestling, because they're like, I forget how many people have mentioned this, but like, you can, if you want to look, find professional wrestling on just about every single day of the week. I mean, when it comes to, you got the WWE with all their shows, and then you got their Peacock with the network on it. You got Impact, you got AEW, GCW, and Fight, and IWTV, literally any day of the week. And somebody, I forget who, and I feel bad for forgetting who said this to me, but I agreed with them that professional wrestling might not be as like popular as it was back in like Attitude Era, but it's definitely probably as healthy as it's ever been with all the choices. What's some of your opinions on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fantastic that there's this many companies out there giving people work and letting people who may not have had an opportunity to make a living off of professional wrestling, they're giving these people that chance now. And I think that's a great thing. And I think, we run the risk of a bit of oversaturation, but there's a lot of diehard wrestling fans out there right now. And it's not a shameful thing to say that you're a wrestling fan anymore. I think we all remember, if you're of a certain age, you all remember a time in your life where you kind of had to keep it in the closet. If you were talking about being a wrestling fan, you were going to get made fun of. You were going to get teased, bullied, whatever it may be. And that's not the case anymore. People are wearing their wrestling pride on their sleeves, and I think that's a fantastic thing. So
definitely,
there's a lot of wrestling content, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I keep up with all of it, because I don't. There's too much. I got my two boys, and they play hockey, and they play baseball, and they play soccer, and they play everything else, in addition to other interests in life that I may have. And sometimes, man, when you surround yourself with wrestling every day of the week, you just need a break. So I can't profess to watching all of it, but I'm glad that it's there. I'm glad that it's providing a living for a lot of my friends. and a lot of my students, my graduates. So hopefully we can keep this rolling for many, many, many more years to come.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard some people talk about with the sheer amount, and it's seeming like, according to a few people, they believe that there's some people out there getting chances that they're watching them and like, why? And then I come in with, they can't get better if they don't have the chance.
Yeah.
You only get better through, getting in there and going at it. And, not everybody's going to be a Seth Rollins or Undertaker, not everybody's going to get to that level, but like you kind of mentioned a little bit ago, as long as you're having fun with it,
yeah,
and you're entertaining the people coming to the shows, then hey.
Yeah, and not everyone is supposed to be a Seth Rollins or an Undertaker, like if you think about it logically, if everyone's the Undertaker, then the Undertaker's not special. If everyone's
True.
Seth Rollins, then Seth Rollins isn't special. So the cream's always going to rise to the top. And just because you give somebody an opportunity and maybe they don't knock it out of the park that one time, it doesn't mean they weren't worthy of giving it a shot. And it doesn't mean that they won't be ready for that opportunity if it should arise, a couple years down the line. So, I mean, yeah. I'm not going to knock anyone for getting an opportunity and trying their best. I don't want anyone to be like, no, I'm not ready. Don't book me. Give it a shot.
Yeah.
Go out there, try your best, and if it goes well, fantastic, good for you. And if it doesn't, then you know what you need to work on. You know what you need to try to get better at. So the next time you get that opportunity, you can do a better job and maybe impress more people.
Totally. And thing that I also like to think about it, there's so many people out there that, if you ask me, get a little too overly analytical about it. And
yeah, absolutely.
It's like if you just sit back and enjoy the show and just try to let yourself enjoy the show, you'll have a lot more fun.
Oh, yeah, and for sure.
I understand with people that, run the shows, run the training academies. Sometimes that can be a little hard because you're watching it and you can think, I would have done that differently. But then there's people like me doing the podcast or just going to the shows and like, oh God, why this person? It's like, just sit back and enjoy the show. You'll have a lot more fun with it.
Yeah, not everything needs to be analyzed under a microscope, but not everybody who has an opinion is worthy of, I mean, I guess everyone who has an opinion, you can share your opinion, but that doesn't mean your opinion's any good, and that doesn't mean it carries any weight, and I'm going to trust the people who have been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years over the people who have been watching wrestling for a number of years. You know what I mean? And that's not to say that their opinion's invalid, but let's also try and remember that wrestling is a never-ending book, right? It's a never-ending story. There's no off season. Every week, on Monday, you get a new chapter of Monday Night Raw. If you don't like that chapter, it's not the end of the book. The next week, the next Monday, there's a new chapter. Turn the page, keep reading. Let's judge it as we go along instead of just taking every single decision and, like you said, overanalyzing it, putting it under a microscope and beating a dead horse until there's nothing left. You know what I mean? You got to just say, okay, well, maybe what they did tonight wasn't my cup of tea, but let me see where it goes. Because maybe in 2, 3, 4 weeks, it ends up being the coolest thing you've ever seen in your life. You just got to let it play out. Give it some time. And like you said, sit back, relax, enjoy it. It's just a bit of entertainment. That's what it is. It's not life or death. Yeah.
And like that was kind of the thought process that got me back into, I mean, I'll admit for a while I didn't watch so much of the WWE product, but when I allowed myself to just sit back and enjoy it, I found I sound like a broken record here, but I found myself having a lot more fun with it.
Yep. Yeah, and it's supposed to be fun. That's really all it is.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun. Like I said, it's not life or death. It's not meant to be, microanalyzed. And I think a lot of that's come over the last few years, where the internet obviously has taken off, and Twitter is huge, and kayfabe is completely dead. It doesn't exist anymore, and so a lot of fans feel like maybe they're on the inside of the business and they understand how the business works. But I'll put it this way: I'm a huge football fan. I love my team's the Miami Dolphins. I'm a big Miami Dolphins fan. I'll watch the game on Sunday, and there's going to be play calls I don't agree with, or why was this receiver running this route when he should have been doing this, or let's take this guy out of the game and put him in the game. But the fact of the matter is, those coaches know a lot more than I do. I'm just a guy who watches football on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays. I played in high school, but I didn't play in college. I never played in the pros. Those guys know more than I do. They have methods to their madness. They have reasonings for why they made the decisions that they made. That doesn't mean that they were the right decision. That doesn't mean they were good decisions, but there were reasons behind those decisions. And until you're privy to that information, until you know exactly why a decision was made, you can't really, criticize the decision that was made, because you don't know what it was. So like in a wrestling match, you're like, oh man, why did this guy do this? Why he should have done it this way? Well, you don't know what he was asked to do. Not every match is supposed to be a 5-star WrestleMania main event classic. There are matches that are supposed to be 30 seconds long. There are matches that are supposed to be a minute long. And if that's what that performer was asked to do, then who are you to criticize him for going out there and doing his job?
No, exactly. That's how I feel. Oh no, I feel the exact same way. And it also comes down to, if after a while you find out that a certain product isn't up to your taste, with all the choices out there, if you're actually a wrestling fan, you'll find something that fits your taste. And if for some reason you don't, you probably weren't even a big fan to begin with.
Yeah, yep. There's nobody holding a gun to your head making you watch the product. And there's certainly nobody holding a gun to your head making you tweet about the product that you hate. So why are we spreading such negativity? If you don't like something, change the channel, move on with your day. It's not difficult.
I completely agree. All right. So I kind of like to do something similar to what Stone Cold does on his Broken Skull sessions with the speed rounds that I've seen him do. I kind of like to tailor it to the guests in some ways. I name off a person, you give me your thoughts on it.
Sure.
All right. First off, a guy we've talked quite a bit early on here, Seth Rollins.
Good friend. I can't imagine what my life would be like if we had never met. If you ever need anything, he's one text away, one call away, and he would literally give you the shirt off his back if you requested it. So I'm very thankful that he's in my life.
That's awesome. Out of curiosity, I know he's a pretty busy man with his schedule. Does he get a whole lot of time to get out there to Black and Brave Academy?
Oh, yeah. He's there all the time. I've seen him multiple times every week for the last 3-4 weeks. Now we've been on our off session, so we start back this week, back training this week, and he'll be there. He splits his time between here and LA, where Becky has a house, and so they try to hop around from here and there. But he's at the gym all the time. He's coaching all the time. We're not one of those schools where his name's on the building and then you never see him. So he'll be there. You're able to ask him questions and get feedback. And once you graduate, you have access to him as well. You can send him matches and he'll watch them and give you feedback. So he's a very active coach within our community.
That's awesome knowing that, because, there are plenty of those schools out there that, somebody might attach their name to, and then they rarely are ever there.
Yeah, no, that's not us, and I'm very proud of that fact that we let you know he's going to be there, and he's there. He's not there every day, but he's there. He's there a majority of the days, and you'll be able to get your money's worth out of him, for sure.
That's awesome. That is awesome. All right, next one, guy that you recently had a return match against, JT Energy.
Fantastic performer. I've had a lot of fun watching his growth over his, I want to say 6 years in the business, somewhere around there. I'm excited to see where he goes from here, and he'll always have a supporter in me.
That's awesome. He actually faced off against a guy I consider like a brother to me, goes in the ring by Bo Gott. And
I know Bo. I've known him for a number of years.
Oh, yeah, he's like a brother to me. I've actually had him on, and what was, I guess, supposed to be his retirement match was, I believe, and hopefully I don't get this wrong, but I believe it was a tag match, and JT Energy was on the other side of it. I actually bought one of the special turnbuckle pads that night.
Oh, wow.
So I still have that. I keep on bugging him to get that signed. But all right, next off, a guy that took a little bit of time off, but he's making a comeback and doing great things with that Blackpool Combat Club, Jon Moxley.
Hey, man, he's a fantastic performer. We have crossed paths a handful of times, not anything super serious. We've never actually worked together. I know Seth has nothing but positive things to say about him. He always tells me that outside of myself in our younger years, that him and Moxley have had the most chemistry. He's had the most chemistry with Moxley in his career. So, I'm happy that he's been able to find a good spot in his life with what he has gone through. And his struggles, and he's been able to overcome them, and he's clearly in a good position right now with where he's at, and he's having a good time. He's having a lot of fun in the business again, and we've talked about that a handful of times on this show, but that's the most important thing. If you're having fun, you're going to do your best work. The fans are going to notice it. So I think that's where he's at right now, and I'm really happy for him.
Extremely happy for him. I'm loving what he's doing with the Blackpool Combat Club right now. Some of that's like, I love that intensity. Those characters that have that intensity about them, those are the guys that definitely draw me in. He is definitely one of those.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he's always been real.
No, definitely. All right. I actually have I find it a funny story about this last guy. Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, however you want to address him.
Yeah, he's also, I'm not going to talk crap about anyone. He's a great dude. He's hilarious, very, very funny, very genuine, nice guy, despite what his persona on the television might indicate. Yeah. But they did an event a handful of years ago in the Quad Cities, WWE did. And I took my boys, at least my oldest boy. I can't remember if my youngest was there. Anyway, we were sitting front row, and he comes out and he does this thing, and he recognizes me. We've been on a number of shows together throughout the years, going all the way back, probably to 2005 was when we first met. And so he recognizes me, and during the match, he yelled something about a very famous botch that you may have seen that I have on YouTube and Botchamania. It's the shooting star press, where I go straight up, straight down, and I hit my stomach on the turnbuckle, and I fall down, and I go through the table, and it's all fun and games and whatnot. It's a number of years old at this point. So he references that while he's wrestling in this dark match, and the people around me pop because they know the botch and whatnot. Obviously he's wrestling as a heel that night. So the match gets over, and he comes directly over to me and to my son, and he leans into my son, and he says, don't worry about anything I said earlier. Your dad's a great dude and a fantastic wrestler. And then he took the shirt that he was wearing, he took it off and he gave it to my son. So my son took home a ring-worn Kevin Owens t-shirt from an event that we got to attend. So he's a great dude. I was actually at WrestleMania Night 1 this year, and got to watch him versus Stone Cold live. And I'll tell you what, man, that match was fantastic. The energy in that building was electric. I couldn't have had more fun, and I was so proud to see somebody. I'm not going to say we're the closest friends ever. You know, it's not like we call each other on the weekends, but somebody that I know, somebody that I would, consider myself friends with, to see him in such a big moment against somebody who has meant so much to him throughout the course of his career, and to just see where indie wrestling is now. And he obviously comes from indie wrestling, and he carries that torch with him everywhere he goes. And in 2003, when I broke into the business, if you would have told me that, almost 20 years later, an indie wrestler like Kevin Owens, was going to main event a WrestleMania against Stone Cold Steve Austin, like, nobody believes that. Nobody's going to believe that that's a thing that will ever happen. But it did happen, and it was phenomenal, and I was very happy that I was able to be there for that.
Oh yeah, I've that's on my bucket list to go to a Mania, but I was definitely watching that night and seeing just all the way from when the glass broke and Stone Cold came out, and like, it's been so long since he's been out there in that aspect. And I'm such a huge Stone Cold guy that I'm like, and I'm a fan of Kevin Owens. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then
doesn't get better than that.
They both did so well together. Like, it was amazing. And then my little, I consider it a funny story. My wife and I went with my parents and one of my sisters and her kids to Disney World, the one in Florida, and we're on our way out, and I dropped something, so I bent to pick it up, and I look up, and almost about to walk into me, Kevin Owens. Like, I'm like, wait a minute, and then I see that T-Rex skull he has tattooed on his arm. I'm like, oh. And he was with his family, so I'm like, I know if I give him the attention that I want to give him, then it's going to be just a swarm of people. So I know I saw him, so I'm good. And then I ran up to my wife, and I'm like, oh my God. And,
that's great.
Yeah, it was something else, because, I mean, in a place the size of Disney World, you're like, could you run into somebody like that? Yeah. But how likely is it actually to happen?
Right. Yeah, that's a great story.
And, I mean, who knows? Maybe he'll end up, lofty goal. Maybe he'll end up watching this.
Hey, that'd be great.
Oh, yeah. Heck, I know they got a whole protocol with the podcast and stuff, but shit, I wouldn't pass up getting to talk to him. All right. So, last but not least, I want to give you the chance to, we kind of talked a little bit about some of the events you have coming up, but plug some of those events, and where can people find you to, follow you, or if they want to inquire on training, even though I know there's that little bit of a wait right now.
Sure. Okay, so there's a laundry list here. You can follow me personally, Mbrave13 on Twitter, Instagram, no Facebook. I'm one of those guys. I've never had a Facebook my whole life, never had one. So I don't plan on getting one now. But on Twitter and Instagram, you can find me at Mbrave13. You can find us at Black and Brave on Twitter, or Black and Brave Wrestling on Instagram. if you want to do that. And if you'd like to follow my independent company, if you're local here in Iowa and you want to check out some kick-ass wrestling featuring many graduates of the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, you can find us at SCW Pro on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
All right. And you have a few upcoming events, I believe, for your promotion. Any ones in particular that you're looking forward to, like some matches coming up?
Sure. Yep. My next match, like we said, a little bit of a comeback tour here. My next match is May 14th at the Walcott Coliseum in Walcott, Iowa for SCW Pro, and we're actually selling advanced tickets for that. It'd be scw-pro.ticketleap.com. So scw-pro.ticketleap.com if you'd like to purchase some advanced tickets to my next match, May 14th, Walcott, Iowa.
All right. Yeah, I will definitely be posting links to all the social medias and the website to get tickets to the show, because, I'm all about, helping out and, any way I can give back to pro wrestling in general that's given me so much and helped me through quite a bit. So whatever I can do to help, willing to do.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. So that's about all we have for tonight. I want to thank Marek Brave for taking the time to talk to me. And like I mentioned earlier, like, subscribe, turn on the notifications. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and want to make sure I take the time. People that have been real good to the show on social media, Val Pancakes and her show The Stack, and the Random Podcast, they've been great about helping, pushing and sharing my shows. So thank you to them, and hope everybody has a good rest of the evening.
See you later.